So, hello and welcome. Welcome to this session on how to prepare for your best year of training. Just a few housekeeping things to get started with. First of all, I'm just checking I am recording, and I am recording. So the session is being recorded and it will be shared afterwards. So if you want to remain anonymous for whatever reason, then please feel free to turn off your camera, change the name to, an anonymous name in terms of what your Zoom name appears as. That said, if you are happy to keep your camera on, I'd be massively grateful. It's always nicer to be speaking to people rather than to be speaking to blank Zoom screens. But if you need to go off and eat or do anything else, then absolutely fine. Not a problem at all. I've got two screens on the go, so apologies that sometimes I'm looking here, there and everywhere. But hopefully I'm mostly looking at you as I'm talking. If it's all right, if you can stay on mute, it just means that we've got better sound quality for everybody for the recording. But I do completely welcome questions. So if you've got questions that you want to ask, type them in as we go, or I'll invite you to unmute at the end and you can ask any questions as well. If the question's confidential, then just make sure you send it just directly to me through Zoom and say that you want to stay confidential when I answer the question. I hope that we can all agree that this will be a supportive space, and from my perspective, there's no stupid questions. If it seems like a stupid question, chances are there's a load of other people who also want to know the answer. So please ask any questions. As I say, I'll try and answer them as we go if they're relevant to what we're talking about and I spot the question come through. Otherwise, I'll ask it at the end. If you need to leave before the end, the whole thing's been recorded, so you'll have the answer on the recording. Just to say, the sessions I think most of the people that have signed up are women. I work mostly with women, but men are absolutely welcome. I will just say at some points I will be giving female specific guidance. I won't be giving any male specific guidance in this talk, partly because I'm not a specialist in that, but also because most of the guidance that we're given in general, most sports exercise science is based on men and then extrapolated, well, not even extrapolated, just based on men and we get given it. Whereas there's some stuff that is specific to women. So that's the stuff I'll be sharing where it's different to what the sort of general guidance is that is based on men. So in terms of today's session, I'll be doing, introduction to the session is this now. I'll do a quick introduction to myself. I will then go through my 3 top tips, which is planning your training, supporting your body to train, and is your mind supporting you to do that training. I'll go through all of those in more detail. I'll be giving you a quick sneak preview, or not preview, it's live now, of my new membership. It went live today. I'm very excited about it. I want to share it with you all. And then we'll finish with a Q&A. As I say, type the questions in as we go and I will answer them at the end. Just a quick bit about me. I think lots of you know me, but some of you don't. So I'm the UK's, I think, first and only mental health and exercise triathlon coach. It's always a mouthful to say. And I think it's fair to say I'm just as passionate about the mental health side as I am about the triathlon side. We all know that exercise is good for our mental health, but so many of us will then put boundaries or barriers in there that actually means it can be sort of quite detrimental. We put pressure on ourselves to get a certain time. We compare ourselves to people. We think we're not good enough. And so what should be good for our mental health can often end up not being quite as constructive as it could be. So what I work with my clients on is trying to break down some of those barriers so that it truly can be something that is good for our physical health and for our mental health. I also, as I say, I try and make sure that the training is supportive to our physical health. You can do a lot of training and actually it can be very bad for you. So for me, it's integral that the nutrition, that the recovery and lots of the things we'll be talking about today are part of your training. It's not just throwing as much training at you as we can. I'm a British Triathlon Level 3 qualified coach. I'm a Level 2 Training Peaks coach. I'm a qualified mental health and exercise coach, a qualified personal trainer, a accredited transformational life coach. I've been head coach with 4 different triathlon clubs, and I'm massively passionate about club training and supporting clubs. I'm currently based in York with York Triathlon Club. I am not a doctor, I'm not a gynecologist, I'm not a nutritionist, a dietitian, a physio, any of those things. I'm a coach, but I'm incredibly passionate about the things that I coach on, and I do my best to educate myself on the subjects that I'll be talking about today. But if you please refer to those specialists for specific advice for you where relevant, particularly because I'm talking to you as a general group. I'm not talking to you as an individual. I don't know your individual, case history and everything. So if I'm saying something that sounds sort of controversial to you, then please do check with the relevant specialist before actioning it. quick preview to give you more details at the end, but in terms of my membership, because I'll refer to it a few times as we go through, it's launched today. It's £25 a month, and for that £25 each month, you will get a opportunity to take part in a one-to-one coaching session. So it's a one-to-one session, but it's filmed and shared with the membership so we can all learn from the issues that we discuss in that session. You'll get a new masterclass each month. You'll get a Q&A session each month. You get a consolidation challenge so we can put together, consolidate the things we've learned in the rest of the month. It includes my Club Feel Fit strength and conditioning sessions for runners and triathletes. It includes the on-demand sessions, and then you get a discount if you want to do the live sessions with me. It includes a weekly mobility session, just a short 10-minute session to get your day off to a good start. It includes resources on how to plan your racing, and everything stored in a library so you can catch up on any of the sessions that you've missed. As I say, I'll tell you more about it at the end, but I'm excited about it and I want to share details. So, how to prepare for your best year of training. Number one, have a plan. And I guess this first section of the talk, I'm talking to those of you who want to progress with your training. So you want to move from somewhere to somewhere else, whether that's about getting faster, whether it's getting fitter, whether it's building up the distance towards a race, whatever it is, it's looking in this first section, I'm talking about if we're trying to progress our training. That could also be about progressing without getting injured in the process. Obviously, training isn't just about that sort of side of things. There's the enjoyment, the health and everything. We'll cover those more in the next two sessions. But to get faster or to get fitter, we have to do more than we did before. If we always do what we've always done, our training doesn't progress. We're just kind of plateauing. So we need to do more than we've done before. But if we keep just building up, we get injured. So we need to make sure that we can build up, but allow enough time to recover in between. And for that, I would say we need a plan. We need to know where we're starting from. We need to know where we're trying to get to. And we need to know that we've got enough time to get there safely without getting injured in the process. So if you are writing your own plan, if you're choosing a plan off the internet, if you're working with somebody else off, a coach or whatever to write a plan, I would say any plan should be based on these same sort of fundamental principles. So number one, we need to know where we're starting from. You need to know what your current training is, and you need to be honest with yourself. When I speak to clients, I always ask them what their current training is. And most people either vastly overestimate what they're doing or vastly underestimate what they're doing. Very few people actually are aware of what they're doing. Most of us record our training. So look back at your training and see not what you could do, not what you think you should do, but what you're actually doing, because your plan has to start at the point of where you are now. And then you need to know where you need to get to. So whether that's a certain distance, a race you're building up to, a speed that you want to get to, whatever, but you need to know where you're trying to get to. And then you need to know what your goal is. Are you trying to get a certain time? As I say, is it a certain race or something? And is that goal realistic? So often I'll speak to people and they want to do X by Y time, but what they're asking for just isn't realistic. And then they're putting so much pressure onto themselves, onto their body, and basically setting themselves up for failure. Whereas if you start with a goal that's realistic, you can work towards it. It's far more motivating, and you're not going to get injured or less likely to get injured in the process. As an example, so many people say, I've got this 12-week plan to get me to, this half marathon or whatever that I'm doing. But if that 12-week plan starts with your first week being your longest runs a 10K, and then from there it goes to a 12K and a 14K, are you already doing 10K? If you're regularly only doing, say, a 5K or a 6K, that's going to be a massive jump up. The question isn't, could you do a 10K? It's, are you doing that 10K week in, week out, so that you've got that base that you can go 10K, 12K, 14K, whatever. Or if you've got a 12-week plan, but you know that actually 3 of the weekends you're really busy and you're not going to be able to, move the training to another day, then you actually need a plan that's 16 weeks that starts 3 weeks earlier to allow for those weeks where you can't get those runs in. Or don't choose a plan that's got 5 sessions a week if you actually know that you only ever manage to fit in 3. Whatever it is, that plan has to be based on your reality and start from where you're at and be able to get you to where you want to get to safely without you getting injured in the process. Some other things to take into account as you're either following or if you're writing your own plan. As I say, it has to start where you're at, and then it has to build up slowly. you could say, yeah, but I'm at my 5K and I need to get to a marathon in 5 weeks. I can do that. But is that safe? We need that safe build up. And that's different for every person. You know, people talk about only 10% per week in terms of run volume. That's a made up number. There's no research behind it, but it's not a bad principle. We need to make sure that we're not taking on too much too fast. We need our body to recover as we build up. We need to build the base first. So we don't want to go straight into doing speed work. Arguably, you don't need to do speed work at all. You need to build up that base that gives you the ability to add on the other training. Often people say to me, oh, but it felt fine. I felt fine doing that run that was a bit further than I was meant to. You don't feel it at the time. It's 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks later that you get the injuries that you did, you know, all that time ago. So it's not how it feels, it's what's happening at that micro level. So are we conditioning our bones, our tendons, our muscles and everything to take the load that we're going to be asking them to that we're going to be putting them through as we go through the training? I believe every training plan should have a rest day, at least one rest day a week. You might need more if your life is busy, if you're particularly stressed or whatever, but at least one rest day a week. That doesn't have to be that you do nothing. You might do some light yoga, you might do some light swimming, but it shouldn't be a training day. And then I would always put in a rest week. I put a rest week in every 3 to 4 weeks. I'd say once we're over 40, we're probably looking at a rest week every 3 weeks. When we're younger, maybe every 4 weeks. For my female clients who have a menstrual cycle that I work with, I tend to put that rest week around the menstrual cycle if they have, you know, significant impacts from their menstrual cycle, days where they feel less able to train. So it doesn't mean that we're giving into it, but we're going to have a rest week anyway. We may as well do it when we feel less able. And for some people, that'll be around ovulation. For some people, that'll be a week before their period. For some people, it'll be just after they've started their period. That's different for each person. But knowing your body and knowing what's best for you is allowing you to schedule that rest week when you feel least able to do productive training. And it's not that you do no training in your rest week. You just reduce the volume and you take out the intensity. If you miss sessions on that training plan, then make sure you update the plan. So often we'll miss a session and then we just carry on training. And it's fine if it's just, you know, a sort of midweek, you know, not a very important session. But if it's one of those key weekend sessions, we need to make sure that we've updated the training plan to make sure we can still get from where we were to where we need to get to. If you're changing the plan, and absolutely everybody's going to change that plan as you go through, you know, the plan is written without knowing every detail of what's going to happen in your life. So you need to change the plan as you go along, but make sure that you're knowing what you're doing it consciously. You're keeping to that plan structure. So supposing you decide to do a triathlon club session 1 week, don't do that in addition to what's on the plan. That's a substitute. You swap that in for whatever session was on the plan that you're doing it instead of. Sorry, I said that very complicatedly, but swap it round for a session that's on your plan. And don't just keep on deleting the ones that you don't like. If there's a session you don't like, work out why and do something else that will work for you. Or you know, it says to do hill reps and you haven't got, I live in York, there's no hills here, but I need to think what I'm going to do instead rather than just missing it out. Remember, you don't need to do the race distance before race day. So, you know, loads of people are saying, oh, I'm doing an Ironman. I've booked in for this marathon. You don't need to do a marathon before you do an Ironman. It's fine that that's your first marathon that you do. You need to, I normally only go up to about 75% of the total distance in whichever discipline in the run up to the race. And then I was going to say the most important point, they're all important points, but consistency is absolutely key. So rather than doing a session and going, yes, I'm going to go as hard as I can in this session. I got this session done, even though I was absolutely knackered. Think of the bigger picture. See each session as part of that bigger plan. If I go too hard in today's session, what impact is it going to have on tomorrow? If I move this session from today to tomorrow, what impact is that going to have? So seeing that bigger picture whenever you're looking at your plan. I'm going to quickly, just one slide on race day. It's miles away for most of us and not all of us are racing anyway, but just some things to sort of take into consideration when you're planning for races. So as you build up towards race day, start thinking about what nutrition you're going to use on race day. If you're doing anything over an hour, say 90 minutes maximum, you're going to need to fuel it. So what products are you going to use? Have you worked out how many carbohydrates per hour your body can take? Our body doesn't like taking on carbohydrates. We need to train it to be able to take it on. So we need to practice in training in our long sessions, practice with whatever we plan to use on race day till we can increase that limit so we can take on more carbohydrate, we can take on more energy to be able to, you know, race harder. And logistically, how are we going to carry whatever we're planning to eat or drink on race day? In terms of hydration, particularly if you're racing overseas or in the summer when it might be hot, might not be, God knows these days, but it might be hot. Have you considered, have you trained your gut to take on water while you're racing? Have you decided what electrolytes you're using? Have you worked out the logistics of them? Are you using the big tabs? How are you going to use them if you're running? Work out those logistics. And how would you adapt that plan for the weather? If it's hotter than you planned, or colder than you planned, what needs to change in terms of that plan? In terms of pacing, if you're doing anything that's effectively a time trial, so not like a cycle race where you're racing in a bunch or whatever, but if it's just you against the clock, then the most efficient way to race is constant effort, not constant pace. If you're going up a hill, you need to slow down. If you're coming down, you can go faster, but constant effort. That's the most efficient way, but it's also the most motivational way, because if you go out too fast at the beginning and slow down, it's less efficient. So you'll go slower overall, but it's also really depressing when everybody starts overtaking you. So know that pace, stick to it at the beginning. Everybody else goes racing off far ahead. You can then catch them up when they start slowing down and you're still going at that same pace. So know the pace that's realistic for you, test it in training, know how you can track it. If you're planning to look at it on your watch or whatever, how are you going to do that? And how can you keep to that pace? In terms of mindset, what's your biggest vulnerability? What's going to let you down either in training or in racing? Is it that you get bored and demotivated? Is it that your mind runs away from you and you start worrying about things? Whatever it is, know what those things that can derail you. And I'd say for any of the longer races, anything kind of over a half marathon, over a half Ironman, and under as well, but particularly over, mindset is the biggest thing that's going to make a difference here. So know how you're going to train that mindset. We'll talk about some of that on a bit later on. And then kit. Don't use something new on race day. Make sure you've tested everything. Use it in training. Make sure you're comfortable with it. Make sure you know what options you'd use if the weather's different. Plan for the weather. There is no way of knowing what the weather is going to be on race day these days. You can get everything in one day. So make sure you know what options will work for you for that different weather. Okay. On to the next point, and I don't think there's any questions come in. Wave at me if there have been, but I don't think so. Okay, so supporting your body to be able to absorb the training. So we can't just throw training at our body, or you can, but if you keep just throwing training at the body without doing anything to support it, it's likely to get injured, or you're going to get overtrained or ill. A lot of people come out of a training cycle less fit than they went in. They might be fitter physically, but their health has really paid the price. My goal is to make sure your health is as good or better by the end of a training cycle and that you're not getting injured. So there's lots of things here, but some of the key things to take into account are strength and conditioning to support your body to absorb the training without injury. Nutrition, which is going to determine your body's ability to adapt to that training, and then recovery. And so many of you will have heard me say this a million times, but you don't get fitter from training. You get fitter when you recover from that training. So we need to make sure that we've got enough recovery in there. If you are perimenopausal, menopause is on the cards, on the scene for you, all of this becomes so much more important. I started putting little symbols next to each of the slides, and I think I've left them on there, but essentially it's all really, really important, but it's all even more important if menopause is something that's affecting you or due to be affecting you. So first of all, strength and conditioning. I won't read through all the detail, but there's a load of benefits that we get from strength and conditioning that reduce our risk of injury, and that makes us happy, or it stops us being sad. It also helps to increase our consistency, and the more consistent we can be, the better our training becomes, the fitter, the faster we can get. On the other side of it, there's a load of adaptations that we get that increase our efficiency, and that helps us get faster. So strength and conditioning is going to help us be more consistent, enjoy our racing more, training more, and help us get fitter and faster. But as we get older, the benefits become even more important, particularly for women, but for men as well. So as we get older, strength and conditioning is really important to help us with our body composition, to maintain our muscle and bone, both of which decline as we get older, particularly women as we go through perimenopause and lose estrogen, which is protective of our muscle and bone. We have to fight really hard to hold on to them. It can help us with our posture, it can help us with our brain health, and all of those things together are helping us with better everyday living. So it's not just about the training and the racing, it's about quality of life. In terms of what I recommend you do, I'm not going to go through this slide in detail. If you want to take a photo of it, or you'll get the recording. But if you would rather have somebody help sort of talk you through all of that, I would recommend doing my Club Feel Fit sessions. I cover all of those areas in the Club Feel Fit sessions, and you can get a free trial on my website. So if you go to my website, feelfitwithlucy.co.uk/Club Feel Fit, you can sign up for a free trial there. Or if you're interested in the membership, then it's included for free in the membership, or the live sessions you get a discount for. That's it on strength and conditioning, but if you've got specific questions, then do shout. In terms of nutrition, and as I say, I've put a little symbol next to things that are particularly important in menopause, but they pretty much all are. So number one, fuel your training and fuel your recovery. I can't stress this enough. Particularly female clients really struggle with this. I think everybody struggles with it though. If we're not putting enough energy in the tank, we can't do as much in the training session. If we're just doing a 30-minute easy run, and if that is an easy run for us, that's fine. But anything over an hour, anything that's more intense, we want to fuel it, because then we can achieve more in that training session. If we're under fueling, we're shortchanging our training, and we're shortchanging our recovery, and we're becoming more at risk of injury, because if we haven't got enough carbohydrate, enough energy on board, our body's going to start breaking down our muscles to get to the protein, which it then breaks down for energy. So if we want to hold on to that energy, we want to make sure we're putting in enough fuel in the tank. And we want to make sure that we're kickstarting our recovery rather than needing to wait until we take on some energy for our body to start recovering. So fuel your training with carbohydrates, fuel your recovery with carbohydrates, but also with protein. In terms of protein, everybody should be taking on about 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. For most people on this call, I'm guessing that you're training more than just sort of man on the street or woman on the street. So we probably want more than that. If we are training hard or training significantly, not even hard, if we are perimenopausal or menopausal, if we are over 50, if we are, can't remember what the other thing I was going to say is, but pretty much most people need to be taking, I'd say at least 1.5, potentially higher than that in terms of grams per kilogram of body weight. Now, people always put off this recommendation and go, oh yeah, I need to look at that, but I haven't done it yet. Tomorrow, when you get up, when you have your breakfast, look at the products that you're eating. And that's per day, Helen, per day. So let's say 1.5 at least grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. So tomorrow, look at what you have for breakfast. Look at the ingredient or the nutritional information on the back. Look at how much protein there is. You might need to weigh the portion you're having to know what percentage of that you're having. Work out roughly what you're having for breakfast, because most people have about the same thing for breakfast each day. Do the same at lunch, do the same at dinner. Work out a few standard meals you have and what the protein is in there, and then work out what your shortfall is. And for most of us, it is a shortfall, particularly if we're female, particularly if we're vegetarian. So for me, I weigh about 60 kilos. So that means I need to get 60 grams would be one gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. I'm going to aim for about 100 grams when I'm in my lighter part of training. So most meals, I'm aiming for 25 to 30 grams. If that's giving me a shortfall, then I need to take on something else as well. So thinking about some snacks that you can add into your day, whether that's, like an egg or something, whether that's a shake, whether that's a bar, like protein products, or just protein in its natural form, thinking of different ways you can get that protein in a day. Whole foods, we want to get whole foods rather than refined carbs. There was lots of people talking about low energy. There's a million reasons for low energy, and I'm not going to have time to go through all of that today. I definitely go through it in the membership. But often when we're feeling low in energy, we start eating things that we feel will give us more energy, chocolate, sweets, whatever, which gives us an energy boost. But then we get this big energy crash again afterwards. And then we feel we need more energy, so we eat the stuff. And so we're just going through this kind of cycle up and down. So having constant energy, whole foods the energy comes into our body much slower, so it doesn't need to do the big insulin production and the big high, the big high and then the big low. We get more constant energy if we're eating whole food. So avoid the refined carbs outside of training, fine in the context of training, but looking for those whole foods. So your kind of whole grains, your lentils, your pasta, your pulses and things to help fuel life. We're aiming for variety as well. If we have variety, our microbiome's happy. Our microbiome is linked to so many things, but particularly immunity and mental health. So we want a variety of different whole foods coming in. So look for different colors in everything you're eating. Aim for 30 different whole foods a week. That's the kind of recommended thing. If you're not there, don't worry. Just aim to be closer towards it. In winter, in this country, sorry, there's big flashing lights outside. I can't see what's going on. I'm trying to look out the window at the same time. In winter, in this country, we want to be supplementing with vitamin D throughout the winter. We don't get enough sunlight coming through. Even if we stood naked out in the garden all day, the angle of the sun means we're not going to be getting enough vitamin D. So we generally want to be supplementing through the winter, so through to about March time. Somebody asked about supplements in winter. Vitamin D is the main one for winter, but if you do get a cold, zinc should help to reduce the how bad the cold is or how long it lasts for. We want a balance of fats. So if you're not getting enough omega-3s through your diet, then potentially thinking about supplementing, really important for brain health as well as for your physical health. And make sure we're hydrating enough. A lot of us are really poor at drinking. Make sure you've always got that bottle of water on your desk. I'm going to have a sip now. Make sure that you are hydrating. That's a quick quote from somebody who did my foundations course last year. The foundations course is included as part of the membership. She didn't have a very good diet before. She had IBS and she was really nervous about eating things like lentils and chickpeas and things. She took on the 30 different whole food challenge, and she said within a month it made a massive difference, and her physical and mental well-being just went through the roof, and she hadn't been ill since she started doing it. So, simple changes can make a massive difference. Then the third part of that was recovery. So in terms of recovery, I've already talked about the importance of protein and carbs. We also need those micronutrients, so our vegetables, our fruits, and all the other things that are going to give us those micronutrients, our vitamins and minerals, essentially. We need enough rest between sessions. We've talked about a rest day and a rest week, but we also want to make sure we're separating out our hardest sessions so our body has time to recover from those hard sessions between. And we want to make sure we're limiting intensity. So we don't want every session to be hard. We want to make sure we do a good balance of easy and hard. Our easy sessions should be easy and our hard sessions to be hard. Wow, what's the main downside of not hydrating enough? So many things. Our body relies on our blood is made up of water along with lots of other things. But if there's not enough water in there, essentially we haven't got so much blood. That's a very non-technical way of saying it. And therefore the blood that goes to our body to get the oxygen there to do all our exercise and takes away the waste products is going to be less efficient. But there's so many chemical processes. Think back to your chemistry days in the lab and everything. Water is part, so many processes take part in water. So we need that water, that hydration to be there for all the chemical processes that are happening in our body to take place. We need to cool ourselves down when we're too hot. So we sweat if we get too sweaty. If we sweat too much, we get dehydrated, but then we haven't got enough water to be dehydrating ourselves with. So loads of things. I'll think more on that one. I haven't been asked that one for a long time. I'll think more and see if I can answer more at the end. But essentially everything in our body depends on having enough hydration there. Our body wants to always return to homeostasis, that balance where everything is as it wants to be. And if we're out of homeostasis, if we haven't got that right balance, our body's fighting hard to get back there. So let's make it as easy as it can for it. So I was saying protein, carbs and micronutrients, rest between sessions, said that. Listen to your body. And often we listen to our body. Often we go, oh yeah, I kind of thought that. And people often say, oh, I heard you in my ear, Lucy. I'm kind of like the proxy for the listening to your body, but we don't then act on it. So we need to listen, but we then need to act on what it's telling us. We want to reduce the causes of stress where we can. So trying to, so many things here, but we'll come on to mindset in a second, but being able to reduce our worrying through being in control of our thoughts, working on having boundaries, working on ditching perfectionism, all these things that can cause us unnecessary stress. And then we want to reduce stress once it occurs. So things like breathing practices, things like mindfulness, going for a mindful walk, all these things can help us reduce stress once it occurs. And we want to make sure we get enough sleep, which is much easier to say than do. But I know lots of us have problems sleeping, particularly as we get into perimenopause, but most of us know there are a few changes we could make that would help. And sometimes we just need that kind of nudge to try and put those things into action. Okay, final section. Is your mind supporting you? Now, there is so much I could say about mindset. It's something I'm really, really passionate about. And, it's a vast subject. I'm just going to go through a few points here. So first of all, and those of you who have done sessions with me before have probably seen this slide a million times, but it's for me, this was life-changing. When somebody said this to me and I understood what they meant, it was literally life-changing. So your thoughts are not facts. Everything that comes into your mind is just a thought. It is not a fact, and it can be challenged. We have 80% of our thoughts every day are negative. And if we don't do anything to challenge them, we will be sitting in an 80% negative environment in our head. But we have a choice as to whether we accept those thoughts. So every time you have a thought like, I can't do this, everybody else is better than me, everybody else is faster than me, I don't know if I can finish, I'm not good enough, all of those things, ask yourself, is this thought helping me? And if not, am I prepared to challenge it? If a friend or a child or something was struggling with something and they were saying, oh, I don't know if I'm good enough, would you say to them, yeah, I don't think you're good enough either? Of course you wouldn't, because you know how damaging that would be to say to them. So why can't we do the same for ourselves? Why can't we challenge those thoughts for ourselves and help us to see that there is another positive view? Now, I'll go through in a few slides some of the ways we can go about this. It's really hard to do. We've spent all our life having these thoughts. 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. The same thing that we thought yesterday, we think today, and again and again. So we're trying to change a direction of travel. That's really hard, but it's so worth it, because we can choose to spend 80% of our time sitting in negative thoughts, or we can choose to start changing those thoughts and having thoughts that serve us better, that help us better towards our goals. Another question I get a lot at this time of year, with it being January, is, oh, I need more motivation. How can I get more motivation to achieve my goals? And I'd say that's kind of the wrong question. We don't want more motivation. Trying to use motivation the whole time is exhausting. It runs out. Rather than being the guy pulling the car up the hill, I want to be the kid just pulling the sledge, gliding over the snow. I want to reduce the resistance rather than trying to increase the power, increase the motivation. One thing we can do is the framing around our thoughts. So when things are coming up and saying, I don't want to do this, ask why. Where's that resistance coming from? So just to take a really simple example, you've been told you need to do a plank because it's going to make your core stronger, which is going to help you with your training, and you don't want to do that plank, and your mind's saying, I don't want to do this. Ask yourself why. Why don't you want to do it? And it's probably because it's hard, or you don't feel that you're very good at it. So if it feels hard, well, of course it is, because you wouldn't have been told to do something you could already do. It's got to be hard for it to be something that's going to improve your fitness. So embracing the fact that it's hard because it's helping you improve your fitness. Or if you say, but I'm not very good at it, well, what's the best way to get better at something? Practicing it. So ask what that thought in your head is. What is the thought, and how can you challenge it? Using it to prove to yourself you can do something hard and you can get stronger, and using that as evidence to yourself that you can do something, rather than just always having this feeling that it's something you can't do and that you don't want to do. Another way to try and reduce that resistance, or to make it easier, is to build habits. When I first started talking about habits were really like, nobody talks about habits, and now you can't move for people talking about habits. But here's my take on habits. So first of all, if you're going to do something, supposing I'm planning to do 3 runs this week. If I just say I'm planning to do 3 runs this week, I hope I'm going to get a run done tomorrow. That's not going to happen. Instead, I need to plan when I'm going to do it, and I need to commit to it. I need to look at my diary for tomorrow. I need to see when I've got time to go. I'm going to put it into my diary so that I actually, it pings up telling me that's what's happening, and I can't do something else at that point. And I mentally commit to it. That's the first stage, and it's the one that we really, really underestimate so often. People say, I can't lose weight, because they're trying to lose weight, but they haven't actually decided what they're doing, what those steps are to get there. Then next step, I need to visualize doing it. So I'm going to go for this run tomorrow. I'm going to do it first thing in the morning. I'm going to visualize now all the steps I need to do, from waking up in the morning through to getting out the door, through to getting home from my run. That's going to help me realize all the things I need to get ready. I want to get a playlist together. I need to get my clothes together. It's really cold, so I need to find my gloves, blah, 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 blah. Don't leave those decisions till tomorrow morning. You've got decision fatigue. You'll run out of time. You won't get it done. So visualize all the steps I need to do. Then I'm going to get to the point of going, oh, but it's going to be really cold. I don't want to go out tomorrow. It's going to be cold and dark and horrible. I need to keep visualizing the next few moments. Oh no, now I remember, after a few minutes, I get a lot warmer and it's absolutely fine. And then a few minutes later, I actually really enjoy it. And a few minutes later, the sun starts to come up and it's beautiful. Helping myself see that full picture. My body doesn't want to go for a run. It's going to find every reason not to. And it's just going to fixate on the fact that it's going to be really cold and horrible. I need to remind it that there's all those other bits that I actually like. I need a trigger. So for my run tomorrow morning, my alarm goes off. First thing I'm going to do is go for that run. Could be you come home, could be that you're doing it at midday, but there's an alarm on your phone or whatever. If you just think I'm going to get my physio exercises done at some point tomorrow, they won't happen. We need that reminder that tells us this is the time that I'm doing it. The best thing is to pin it to an existing habit. So I do my physio exercises before or after my run. I'm already going for the run. I've pinned it to something I'm already committed to doing. To build a habit, we need to keep doing it. So that's how we create that habit. We do it over and over again. If you're struggling to do it, build in a reward. I come home and then I can have my morning cup of coffee or whatever it is. Make that reward in there so that your body starts to want to do it rather than not wanting to do it. If you're struggling to do it, make it easier. Rather than going for a half-hour run tomorrow, all I need to do is do 15 minutes. Then I'll go, oh, there's no point in doing 15 minutes. Fine, do the 15 minutes and then keep going. But make it as easy as you need to get it done. And then reflect and learn. So I come back from my run and I go, oh, that was really nice. I really enjoyed it. This happened, that happened. Bank those memories so that when I go back to that step of visualizing again, I've got all those positive things to come to rather than just going, oh, it's going to be really hard and dark and horrible. I don't want to go. Or if I don't get the run done, don't just say, I'm try harder next time. Trying harder doesn't work. Learn why it didn't happen. Learn what you need to change next time so that it did. Then just checking. So race day nerves, or this is the same process for dealing with really any unhelpful thoughts. First of all, we need to notice that we're having an unhelpful thought. So that might be that we're panicking about race day or whatever other unhelpful thought. But we need to notice that thought because we can't do anything about it if it's just there. 80% of our thoughts are negative. They're just there. We want to notice them and start to challenge them. But we can't go straight into challenging them because we're probably going to be in a bit of a fight or flight state, particularly if we're nervous about something or upset about something, and we'll react in a kind of non-logical way when we're in that fight or flight state. So we want to pause. We want to bring ourselves back into rest to digest. So we want to breathe. Nice deep breaths can help to relax us, which makes us feel better, but also helps to calm down our thinking. We can also scan the horizon. That helps to take us out of that tunnel vision and take us into that more calm space. If our thoughts are racing and we're just going, oh my God, I can't do it, write down your thoughts. Writing them down slows down the thinking and helps us go into that more rational side, or even speaking to your phone or something, speaking it out loud. So often when I'm talking to clients and they start asking a question or saying why they're upset about something, and as soon as they start speaking out loud, they go, oh, but this sounds stupid. It sounds stupid when we say it out loud because we're slowing it down and we're thinking rationally. When it's in here, it just whizzes around and it seems like the most valid and terrifying thought. So we've calmed ourselves down, we've paused, and then ask yourself what you're scared of, and then really interrogate the thought and remember that thoughts aren't facts. So silly little example here of me kind of talking to myself in my head. So, oh my God, I'm worried about triathlons. Triathlons are all about 90%, all this different kit and all these different things you need to worry. So, oh my God, I'm panicking. I'm worried I'll forget all my kit. Okay. Have I got a packing list? Yes. Right. Why don't you go through your packing list and tick things off on there? Do it slowly rather than in your fight or flight running around like a mad thing. Work it out, go through slowly, check that you've got everything. Okay, I've got everything, but then I'm going to be too cold. Okay, what can you do about that? Okay, I could try other kit. I could practice in those conditions. Okay, great. But what if it's colder than normal? And then just asking yourself, can you do anything about that? Can you control the weather? No. So why don't you just focus on what you can control? And that is so hard to do and not to get swept up into this whole but I want to do this. I'm worried about this, worried about that. But if we can't control anything, there is no point in worrying about it. So work out the things we can control, take action to deal with those, but don't worry. Try and move on from the things that we can't control. And then finally, lots of people in the questions were asking, or comments and questions around not having enough time. So if you literally don't have enough time, do your goals need to change? If you don't have enough time to train for a marathon, should you be doing a marathon? Or do you need to think about doing a marathon next year when you can build up more slowly, or doing a marathon slower so that you don't need to put so much pressure on yourself in terms of the training? So do those expectations need to change? Or is it the boundaries? Do you not have enough time because you're too busy doing something for everybody else rather than making time for yourself, or too much time at work rather than making time for yourself? Then on the other side of the equation, Is it that you have the time, but you're not making the time? And that comes down to planning. Are we planning our time well? Have we built those habits so we actually get things done when we plan to get them done? Have we worked on our mindset so that we're not wasting time worrying about stuff or procrastinating? We procrastinate when we're scared of doing something. If we work on our mindset and work out why we're scared and overcome that, we can get on with doing it. Or is it that we're just not learning and we keep on repeating the same mistakes over and over? So lots of things to think about there, but often don't just stop at, I haven't got enough time. If you haven't got enough time, you either need to change what you're trying to do, change the goals, or change how you're going about it. Right, that is my 3 big top tips. If you have questions, pop them in. I'm going to go through my membership again, just in a bit more detail now, but that should give you some time to put in some questions. I've also got the questions you've submitted, so I'll go through those at the end. But as I say, if you've got questions, or if you'd rather just ask a question, just type into the chat, unmute, and then once I've finished going through this, I will ask you to unmute and you can ask your question. So, as I said, in terms of the membership, every month there is a coaching session, a masterclass, which begins with my Feel Fit Foundations course. There is a coaching Q&A, and then there's a consolidation challenge. Those are the times for next month, so you can get an idea of when the sessions are. Sessions are generally either lunchtime or evenings. When everybody joins the membership, I'm asking them what times work best for them. So I'll try and make sure the calls are scheduled at the times that work for them, but it's not a set time each month, because if that's not a time you can do, then that would mean you could never make it. So I want it to work for as many people as possible. The masterclass in February is looking at the foundations of your training. In March, around International Women's Day, we're looking at maximizing your training as a woman. In April, we're looking at mastering your mindset. In May, we're looking at nutrition for everyday health. For your training as a woman. I don't know if I said at the beginning, the training is for women. It's for female triathletes and runners, or anybody doing sort of endurance training. And then in June, we're looking at recovery and stress. And then I've got the rest of the timetable, but I won't go through all of that now. Here's just a few testimonies from people. Somebody who did the foundations course last year. As I say, the first kind of few months of the masterclasses are based on that foundations course. And then some feedback from somebody who does Club Feel Fit. Club Feel Fit sessions are included for free. The pre-recorded sessions are included for free in the membership. If you are interested in signing up, I will be sending you an email after this with all the details, but you can go to my website, feelfitwithlucy.co.uk/membership, and you can sign up there. £25 a month will get you all of those things I just went through. There is, in terms of special offers, if you sign up this month, you will be a founder member. That means your membership will be capped at £25 a month forever for access to the membership. So if prices go up in the future, you won't pay more than £25 a month to access the membership. I had a special code going out for those who had signed up to the wait list. And at the point that I checked just before starting recording, there was one place left to be used. So if you use the code VIP2, or one word, then you will get your first 2 months free, and you'll get a private 30-minute one-to-one coaching call with me. If that code doesn't work anymore, that means because somebody's used it by then, but you can have a go with that. Or if you'd like to win those 2 months free and the 30-minute private coaching call, if you tag me in a social media post, either about tonight's talk or the membership, I'll put you in a draw. The more posts you do, the more entries you get into the draw. That draw will end Thursday. So if you're watching this on replay, you've got until Thursday evening, as in tomorrow. What date's that? The 30th, I think, to enter. I'm at Feel Fit with Lucy on Instagram and on Facebook. Okay, questions. No questions coming in yet. I will go through the questions that were submitted in advance. I haven't got all the questions here because I'm hoping a lot of them have been answered through the presentation so far. So I'm just putting initials here so you are remaining anonymous, but you'll know who you are if you can't remember what question you asked. So RC asked, are shorter runs okay? Say 5K rather than 8K during the week when time and light is tricky. So she's got a job that means she can only run in the dark, which is tricky where she lives. She's training for a half marathon. First of all, and I'm trying to answer these generally for everybody. Something is always better than nothing. So if 5K means you get a run done and trying to do 8K means you don't, or means you break your neck running in the dark or whatever, then absolutely 5K is absolutely fine. But you will be missing out significant amounts of your training. If you had 2 8K runs a week and every single week you're only doing 5K rather than 8K, you're going to be missing out. So you could look at doing 3 shorter runs in the week, of those 3 5Ks, you'll achieve more in terms of building your endurance from 2 8K rather than the 3 5K. I'm making up numbers here. That does about add up to the same number. But that would be one option. Or could you do 1 5K, but one day you could run, she doesn't like running after work, and I completely understand that, but once a week, could you run after work when you could do a longer one? Or could you do a fatigued, you do your 5K in the morning, and then you just do a shorter run in the evening, so you're still getting that volume in. Not quite as good as doing the 8K, but better than not getting it in, and you've still got that fatigue from the morning, so you're still achieving more than you would just in a normal 3K. But also bear in mind, if you're training for that half marathon, sorry, I've said half Ironman, I mean half marathon, that run is going to get longer. So what are you going to do as the runs get longer? Hopefully the light is getting better by then. So BM asked, are there any shortcuts to get in more endurance, faster or stronger? I have no time to waste on unnecessary training. That basically in life generally, there are no shortcuts or magic pills, but in this case, I'd say yes, there are. You may well already be doing these. So adding structure. If we just go out and train and train and train without any structure, we'll get fitter if we're progressing, if we're doing more than we did the time before. But the most efficient way to get faster, stronger, or to build that endurance is to be doing structured training. So doing intervals at a certain intensity, and there's loads of different intensities. I won't go through all of those in detail now, but doing those intervals will achieve more. So if you only had an hour to go out on your bike, I think this person is a cyclist, go out on your bike after work, can you do it as intervals, or doing it on a turbo makes it a lot easier, especially at this time of year. But whether you're using a power meter, whether you're using perceived effort, whether you're using heart rate, doing set intervals, knowing what the purpose of those intervals are and how long they should be is going to mean you can get more achieved in less amount of time. The other shortcut is to make sure you're fueling properly. So I've already gone through the detail of that, but making sure you're fueling the session so you can get as much in that session because you've got enough energy to get it done, and then making sure you're getting that recovery in as soon as possible. Women, we need to start our recovery within about 40 minutes of a session. Men have about 2 hours to, I think, 18 hours to recover. That's their recovery window. Women, we blah, blah, blah. Our recovery window starts and ends around 40 minutes. So we want to try and get that protein in as soon as possible after training and with the carbohydrates. So we've got the energy to recover. So yeah, making sure we're fueling our training and our recovery. And then just a question, it's probably just, writing a quick set of words here, but the words that ring alarm bells to me is more endurance, faster, stronger. Do we know what we mean by more endurance? We're so good at saying, I want more of this, I'm not good enough, I need more of that, I need more of that, I need more of that. But do we ever know when we get there? Or do we keep on moving those goalposts? So just making sure that we're not always putting pressure on ourselves to do more and more. Do we know when we're going to get there, what that more means? HC said, as a vegetarian, understanding how to fuel before and after training and events, what are my go-to favorites? So we want, as women, again, ideally, we want 15 grams of protein before training to sort of tell our body that we're ready for it, to kickstart the motor almost. And then we want about 30 grams of protein straight after training. That's part of that daily target, but trying to get it in as soon as possible after training, as I say, with that 40-minute window. And it's not that if you didn't get it in at 40 minutes, by 42 minutes, it's not worth it, but as close as possible to that 40 minutes. I would say, I don't like them. When you say favorites, I don't like them, but I would say a shake or a bar, whatever you prefer, is easier. If we're trying to get it in quickly after training, something that is convenient, that we can already have in our bag if we're traveling, to the gym or something to do the session, means we're more likely to get it in. I'm a vegetarian who also eats fish, so not a proper vegetarian. I'll have like sardines on toast or mackerel on toast. Some people think that's disgusting, I know, but that can be, or eggs on toast, that can be a really easy, quick way of getting some protein in with real food rather than a shake or a bar. But otherwise, I tend to use those. I tend to mix my own. So I've just got protein powder rather than with all the artificial stuff you get in a pre-made drink. And then I mix it myself. But everybody, find what works for you. SK asked how to structure a week of training if I want to train each discipline 3 times a week. I'm not going to go through that in detail because that's so dependent on, you as a person, your week and everything. What I would say is making sure that you know what the purpose of each of those sessions is or what the difference between them is. So I would plan to have a long, easy session, and I would have a shorter, more structured session. I might have a technique session. Do you need 3 in each discipline? That's a question. A genuine question. And when you say in each discipline, are you also accounting for strength and conditioning? I'd say we want to be doing strength and conditioning, probably if we're doing that amount of training, probably twice a week. Yeah, but in terms of the detail, I think that's so specific to each individual. SK also asked, is it better to ride on a turbo where you've got control over the session, or in a group outside where you've got no control over the session, but you can try and control the effort? First of all, do what you enjoy doing because you're more likely to do it. But I'm a big fan of turbo training. There's lots of blogs on my website as to why I'm such a fan of turbo training. I agree, it means you've got the control over the session, you can do what you plan to do, but I'd say it's probably not an either or. For most people who I write training plans for, maybe once we're outside of January, they'll have a turbo once or twice a week, and then they'll be doing an outdoor ride at the weekend as well. So you're getting the best of both worlds there. But if you could only do one session or you had to choose, I'd say, well, I still wouldn't choose. 1 week I'd do a turbo, 1 week I'd do a group outside. You need those skills. You need those skills of riding outdoors. You need the endurance. If you're doing something long, you need the time. I would never do longer than 2 hours on a turbo. So you need the mix of the two. And, having fun with other people means we're more likely to carry on training, and it's better for our mental health. So trying to get the mix, but definitely I agree, we do want control over the session. TA asked how to overcome the mental side of not training. I have to train every day as I love routine. I think at the moment, I've just got 1 day off. Is that normal? So first of all, is that normal? Yeah, absolutely fine. 1 day a week is fine. Lots of my clients only have one rest day a week. The fact that you asked the question, though, makes me think that probably you might need more. That's a genuinely open question, but everybody's different. If you start to think, I feel like I need more rest, then you probably need more rest. In terms of overcoming the mental side of not training, this is a really common issue. And my fear for anybody who is dependent on their training for that mental side, that they need to do it, is what happens when you can't train? What happens when you get injured? What happens when you get ill? What happens when you're traveling or the weather, it's icy outside? Then you're completely vulnerable. And especially if you're ill or injured, then it's the worst time to be more vulnerable through not getting that exercise in. So think about, are there other things you can build in? Maybe going for a walk, maybe doing some gentle yoga or mobility work or something that's less stressful on your body, but it's still giving you those benefits. In terms of mental health, we want movement. We want that daylight exposure. So, something like that you could still make part of that routine, but could you have something that's just less taxing on your body? Something that means if you can't exercise for whatever reason, you've got an alternative. RM asked how to regain your enthusiasm for running. I would go back to that mindset and ask why. Why have you lost your enthusiasm? Is it that you're putting pressure on yourself in terms of a pace or feeling like you should be doing something? So ask yourself, interrogate the thoughts. If I think about running, what comes up for me? And then interrogating and asking why those thoughts are coming up and if you can challenge them. I'd get rid of the shoulds and the I should be doing this. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Find something else that you're going to enjoy, that works for you, and make sure you're not putting pressure on yourself that you don't need to. RR asked, or the question sort of around being in sync with the menstrual cycle and feeling less energetic around crucial times in the month. So going back to what I said before, I would tend to schedule rest weeks around when you feel least able to train because of your menstrual cycle. But obviously, if you have a race coming up, you need to start thinking, is my menstrual cycle or are those bad days likely to be coinciding with the race? And lots of us have very irregular menstrual cycles, so that's hard to know. So as we get closer to race day, maybe we need to get used to training through it and learning what helps us, what things help our stomach to feel better. We tend to, our heat, our internal body to heat will fluctuate around it. So do we need to change anything in terms of what we're wearing or how we cool or how we hydrate? Thinking about the kit that we're using, all those different things that can make it easier on our body. So practicing and training if you think that you will be racing through those times where you just feel less able to. And really thinking in terms of energy, there's so many things that I say that go in there, but thinking in terms of what you're eating and whether that is serving you the best that it could be. SE asked about fasting and endurance sport for postmenopausal women. I would not recommend fasting for any women, full stop, except I'm not going to full stop because I'm going to carry on talking. So fasting, it can work for men. It really doesn't work generally for women. There'll always be people that say, oh, it's worked for me. Some of them, maybe it has, some of them will have health impacts later on. But generally, our bodies as women, and men to some extent, but as women, our bodies want to know that there's energy coming in. If we're just fasting and sitting on our bum all day doing nothing, kind of fine. But if we are doing intense exercise or any sort of exercise, our bodies, much more than men's bodies, want to know that there's energy coming in. If we're doing the fasting to lose weight, often our body, if we're fasting and we're trying to exercise, our body goes, oh my God, there's not enough energy coming in. I have to save all the energy because I'm scared. It's like going into a famine. I need to hold on to it. So we actually end up putting on weight. We often end up putting it on around our belly because of the stress response, and we've got more cortisol receptors around our belly. If we're doing it because we want to get better at training, we can do low level fasted training, but the risk of it, the stress response it has on our body, the damage that we do to our body in terms of that stress response is more counterproductive than the benefits that we get. That's particularly for perimenopausal and menopausal women. Postmenopausal, I'll be honest, I don't know specifically, but all women, that's not good for. So I would say you're probably in less danger as a postmenopausal woman than you are as a perimenopausal woman. But I would say I would not recommend fasting for any woman who is doing exercise. And there's, I can't think what she's called. Somebody, she does Fast Like a Girl, Mindy Peltz, who's like one of the big advocates of fasting for women, particularly around perimenopause and stuff. She did a really interesting interview with Stacey Sims, who's the sort of queen of You Must Fuel Your Training. And Mindy Peltz was agreeing with Stacey Sims by the end of this interview about the importance of fueling your training if you are a woman who is training. So, you know, even the person who says we should be fasting as a woman through perimenopause agrees that if we're doing sport, that is a different situation. And then SL asked how to train through the menopause. That is a vast subject, which I did a presentation through back in menopause last year even, back in October last year. It's definitely something I cover in the membership. If you look back through my social media, you'll probably find some notes from that, but it's vast. But what I would say is listen to your body and fuel are the sort of top things there. Right. How are we doing on time? Just over an hour. Has anybody got any questions? No questions have come in. If anybody wants to unmute and ask anything, feel free to. Oh, here we go. Chrissy, regain. Oh, brilliant. Chrissy's got some ideas for RM. So shall I read it out? Do you want to unmute and read it, Chrissy, or shall I?
Yeah, I can do.
Go for it.
I have to say that I am not a runner any longer, but I really enjoyed running when I did it, but my body just can't do it anymore. Just some ideas that work for me. Give yourself a break from it until you miss it. Maybe create a brand new playlist, or think about listening to an audiobook, buy something new, new pair of trainers, or, just something. Maybe adding a different variety of runs. So just going back to walk runs, or there's fartleks, isn't there? And all sorts of drills you can do. I mean, it's all, having said that, then that's very much in line with any plans, Lucy, that you would do with this person. So, yeah, I don't know if that helps.
And just to build on what Chrissy said there about run walk, I am a massive fan of run walk for lots of different reasons, but particularly when we're struggling with something, it's particularly when we have that voice in our head saying, I can't do it. Add in a walk break. People see walking as giving up, but walking is, if we make it part of our strategy, if we left the house planning to do run walk, we're not giving up, we're just following our plan. If you tend to get injured as you build up your training, run walk can help reduce that. If you tend to have stomach issues as you build up the distance, run walk can help that. If you mentally get stuck, then you always know it's only whatever it is, 10 minutes until I walk. It has got me through so many Ironman, knowing that I've got that walk coming up. So if you're struggling with it, try adding in the walk, or just go for a walk. Ditch the running, go for a walk and enjoy your walking. Thank you for that, Chrissy. And if anybody else has any advice on anything, please do chip in on any of those questions. Has anybody else got any questions? As I say, feel free to unmute if you would rather ask than have to type it in.